There is a quiet war raging inside almost every human being who has ever felt the urge to create, to build, to change their life, or to become something more than they currently are. It does not announce itself with gunfire or banners. It does not wear a uniform. It rarely feels dramatic. Instead, it whispers, it delays, it distracts, it convinces, and most dangerously, it makes its presence feel reasonable. This invisible enemy is what Steven Pressfield names resistance, and in The War of Art, he exposes it not as a metaphor, but as the defining force that separates unrealized potential from meaningful achievement. Pressfield's central insight is both unsettling and liberating. The struggle you feel is not a sign that you are weak, it is proof that you are meant to do important work. Resistance only rises in proportion to the significance of the task before you. The stronger the calling, the more vicious the internal opposition. This reframing changes everything. Procrastination, self-doubt, perfectionism, fear of failure, fear of success, over-preparation, addiction to distraction, these are not random personality flaws. They are coordinated tactics in a psychological war against your evolution. This truth resonates powerfully in the modern world. In an era defined by infinite content, endless scrolling, algorithmic distraction, and hustle culture burnout, people are not short on ambition, they are starved for disciplined action. Artists want to create, but wait for inspiration. Entrepreneurs want to build, but keep researching. Professionals want to grow, but remain stuck in comfort. The war of art confronts this paralysis directly. The enemy is not lack of talent or opportunity. The enemy is resistance, and it will never go away on its own. If you love powerful, insightful, and life-changing books, then you've found the right channel. Every week, we break down the ideas that transform mindsets, elevate success, and shift lives. So don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you'll want to catch every book we review. Let's continue. Pressfield's argument unfolds inexorably. If resistance is real, then it must be faced daily, deliberately, and without negotiation. This leads to the next embedded lesson. There is no epiphany that eliminates resistance. There is only the decision to work anyway. Waiting to feel ready, confident, or inspired is itself a form of resistance. Action does not follow motivation. Motivation follows action. This lesson is echoed in both ancient philosophy and modern neuroscience. Aristotle wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Pressfield modernizes this truth. The professional does the work regardless of mood. The amateur waits. In recent years, this distinction has become especially relevant. Writers who publish consistently on platforms like Substack or Medium succeed not because every piece is inspired, but because they show up. YouTubers who grow massive audiences do not wait for perfect ideas. They ship, learn, and iterate. In the US, creators like James Clear or Ali Abdaal build global influence not through viral luck, but through disciplined consistency over years. Globally, the same pattern holds, from African tech founders launching startups with limited infrastructure to Asian filmmakers producing work under intense competition. The professionals endure because they work through resistance, not around it. As this realization settles, another insight emerges naturally. Talent is overrated, and discipline is the true differentiator. Pressfield is ruthless on this point. Talent without discipline is nothing more than potential decay. Discipline, even without extraordinary talent, compounds into mastery over time. This is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. It means success is not withheld by fate, but delayed by avoidance. In modern culture, talent is often glamorized as innate genius, but real-world examples tell a different story. In American sports, athletes who dominate long-term, like Tom Brady, are rarely the most naturally gifted. They are the most disciplined. Globally, elite performers in music, science, and business consistently attribute their success not to inspiration, but to routine. Pressfield's message is blunt. The professional knows that the muse shows up after the work begins, not before. This leads directly to the concept of turning pro, one of the most transformative ideas in the war of art. Turning pro is not about getting paid, it is about making an internal commitment. The amateur plays when it feels good, the professional shows up every day. Turning pro means accepting that fear will accompany meaningful work forever and choosing to work anyway. This idea has deep philosophical roots. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Pressfield echoes this sentiment. Once you commit to your calling, discomfort becomes irrelevant. The work is done not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. In today's world, turning pro is more radical than ever. Social media encourages performative productivity rather than real creation. People announce goals more often than they pursue them. Pressfield warns against this trap long before it became mainstream. Talking about the work is a substitute for doing the work. This insight is painfully relevant now. Many aspiring creators confuse engagement with progress. They build personal brands around aspirations rather than output. But professionals understand that the work itself must come first. Once someone turns pro, resistance adapts. It becomes subtler. It disguises itself as overwork, perfectionism, or noble distractions. This reveals another critical lesson. Resistance will always try to make you quit at the point where success is closest. Fear intensifies as the finish line approaches. This is why so many people abandon projects just before completion.
Recent examples are everywhere. Entrepreneurs abandon startups months before profitability. Writers stop manuscripts one chapter from completion. Students sabotage themselves before final exams. Pressfield's insight explains this pattern. Success threatens identity. Growth demands transformation. Resistance protects the familiar self by making progress intolerable. This leads to a deeper psychological truth. Fear is not a stop sign, it is a compass. The things that scare us most are often the things we must do most urgently. Pressfield reframes fear not as something to eliminate, but as something to interpret. If you are afraid to write, it is because the writing matters. If you are afraid to lead, it is because leadership will change you. This idea aligns with modern therapeutic psychology and ancient Stoicism alike. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Pressfield would agree. Fear magnifies the cost of action and minimizes the cost of inaction. But the real cost lies in unexpressed potential. Globally, people who overcome fear consistently report not the absence of fear, but the expansion of capacity. As the battle with resistance becomes clearer, Pressfield introduces a profound shift. The work is not about you. Ego is one of resistance's strongest weapons. When creators obsess over validation, recognition, or outcomes, they become paralyzed. Pressfield argues that true creative power flows when you view yourself as a channel rather than the source. This is where the war of art moves from psychology into spirituality. Pressfield speaks of the muse, of angels, of higher forces, not as religious doctrine, but as metaphors for transcendent flow states. Whether one interprets this spiritually or neurologically, the insight remains. When you show up consistently, something greater than you meets you halfway. This idea resonates across cultures. In Japan, the concept of shokunin emphasizes devotion to craft as a form of spiritual practice. In India, the Bhagavad Gita teaches action without attachment to results. In the United States, elite creatives often describe moments where the work flows through them. Pressfield's language gives permission to trust this process, provided you do the work first. Once ego steps aside, another lesson follows. Service replaces self-importance. The professional understands that their work serves something larger, an audience, a craft, a truth. This orientation dissolves fear of judgment because the focus shifts from "how will I be seen" to "what must be expressed." This is especially relevant today when comparison culture thrives. Social platforms make it easy to measure worth by likes and followers. Pressfield's philosophy cuts through this noise. Comparison is resistance. The work must be judged by its integrity, not its applause. From here, Pressfield introduces the idea of persistence over intensity. The war is not won in dramatic bursts, but in daily, unglamorous effort. This lesson mirrors compound interest in finance. Small actions repeated consistently outperform sporadic heroisms. In business, fitness, writing, and leadership, those who last win. Recent global examples reinforce this. In the creator economy, those who publish weekly for years eclipse those who burn brightly and vanish. In entrepreneurship, founders who survive downturns outperform those chasing hype cycles. Pressfield's message is timeless. Staying in the fight is the victory. As discipline stabilizes, another transformation occurs. Identity shifts from dreamer to practitioner. This is subtle but powerful. You no longer say, "I want to be a writer," you write. You no longer say, "I'm trying to build a business," you build. Language follows action, not the other way around. This aligns with modern identity-based habit formation theories, but Pressfield articulated it earlier. Act like the person you want to become, and identity will follow. The professional does not wait for confidence. Confidence is a byproduct of action. Eventually, resistance weakens, not because it disappears, but because it loses credibility. You recognize its voice. You stop negotiating. You show up. This leads to the final, deeply human lesson of the war of art. The real reward of creative work is not external success, but internal alignment. Pressfield makes it clear. Even if no one applauds, the act of doing your work makes you whole. It aligns you with your purpose. It quiets the internal war. External success may come or not, but integrity is guaranteed. This truth is echoed by Viktor Frankl, who wrote, "What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal." The war of art is not about eliminating struggle. It is about choosing the right struggle.
In the end, Pressfield's message is both brutal and hopeful. Resistance will never leave you alone. Fear will never vanish. Doubt will never disappear entirely. But you do not need to defeat them. You only need to work anyway. And when you do, day after day, without drama, without excuses, you will discover that the war was never meant to be won once. It was meant to be fought daily, with discipline, humility, and courage. That is how art is made. That is how leaders are forged. That is how lives are lived deliberately. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.